We've got our locked on top 100 college football players. How many SEC players made it? Also, we'll discuss the 10 biggest storylines in the conference with Connor O'Gara. Locked on SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. All right, let's dive into it. This is a project that our folks here at Locked On have been working on for a while, with all of our folks on the college channel voting on the top 100 players entering this college football season. And so without further ado, we'll dive into it. We'll highlight the players from the SEC that made the list, and starting from the 100, working our way back. Coming at number 100 is LSU linebacker Harold Perkins. Of course, got hurt early last year, was preseason all everything going into the year. Remember, he was so good as a freshman 2 years ago at LSU, and just has battled inconsistencies even the year prior when he was healthy. Playing a different position. Everybody was trying to figure out, is he an edge guy? Is he a coverage guy? Whatever. So Blake Baker, their DC at LSU, seems to have figured that out. And so Harold Perkins comes in at 100. He would have been a lot higher on this list had he been healthy. And honestly, had he been healthy all last year, he probably would have went off to the NFL draft. He's that talented. So good news for LSU. They get him back. He comes in at number 100. Running down the rest of the 100 through 90, a couple of former SEC guys on this list, or at least Dane Key from Nebraska, a former Kentucky guy, comes in at number 91. Oscar Delp, the dynamic Georgia tight end, comes in at 92. Will he be a shade of what Brock Bowers was? He makes this list. And of course, Dylan Raiola, Nebraska quarterback, was a former Georgia commit. So there are your pieces from 100 through 91. Checking in at 90 through 81, more SEC guys poking up here. Nate Frazier, the Georgia running back, coming in at number 90. Daylen Everette, one of the best cover corners in the country from Georgia. He comes in at number 88. Just on the surface, feels a little low for Daylen Everette, how good he is. Dazon Stripling from Ole Miss, wide receiver, coming in at number 85. He comes in through the transfer portal. High expectations for him. A lot of people think he is going to have a monster season with Austin Simmons throwing him the football in Oxford. Eli Stowers comes in at number 81, the Vanderbilt tight end that, like I said, looking at some early draft stuff, they have him projected as the number one tight end in next year's draft, depending on which mock you're looking at. But big time that they get him back with Diego Pavia, and I got a feeling we're going to see Diego Pavia on this list at some point. But Eli Stowers, I think most of the list had him projected as the preseason first team all-SEC tight end. And so, again, 81 on this list, you can make a case he deserves to be higher. Checking in from 80 through 71, and we come in at number 77, Casey Concepcion, the former NC State wide receiver, now at Texas A&M. Marcel Reed gets a big-time weapon to throw the football to. A lot of high expectations for him. He got a monster NIL deal to end up there in College Station. And the only other SEC guy checking in from 80 to 71 is Austin Barber, the Florida offensive lineman. And, Florida with several highly touted offensive linemen back, and should be a strength for their team going into this season. How about from 70 through 61? Coming in at number 70, a former Cal running back, now in the SEC at Oklahoma, and that's Jaden Ott. High expectations for him. As Oklahoma's run game was very inconsistent last year. They shake things up. Gavin Sawchuk leaves. He's at Florida State now. Jaden Ott comes over from Cal, expected to be a big piece in that Oklahoma offense. Other SEC guys checking in, Deontay Lawson, number 64, the linebacker from Alabama. Again, feels a little low for Deontay Lawson, as good of a player as he is and as good as he is for Alabama. Feels like should be higher on the list. Carson Beck, the former Georgia quarterback, comes in at number 63 now at Miami. And then coming in at number 61, Tyreek Sapp, the big edge rusher from Florida, should have a monster year this year, will be a force on that defense. Getting into 60 through 51, we get R. Mason Thomas coming in at number 59, the D lineman from Oklahoma. Saw him at SEC Media Days a few weeks ago. One spot ahead of him at 58 is Jake Slaughter, best center of the country, for most folks would say, from University of Florida, big time player right there in front of DJ Lagway for the Gators. Coming number 56, CJ Allen, dynamic linebacker for the Georgia Bulldogs, tackling machine, should be another big weapon for them in 2025. And rounding out the SEC players in this listing, we get Malik Muhammad, the DB from Texas. Surprised he's ranked that much higher than Daylen Everette, but obviously, Texas had a nice postseason run last year, and a lot of people familiar with him, and he's back. And Malik Muhammad, very good player, coming in number 53. All right, so we get into our top 50 and checking in from 50 to 41. We're going to see a lot more LSU or a lot more SEC guys popping up here. Coming to number 49, it's Caleb Banks, the guy who plays next to Tyreek Sapp there on that Florida D-line. Big guy. He's in the top 50. Whit Weeks, another tackling machine, led LSU in tackles last year. Coming in at number 48 is Whit Weeks. At number 47, Parker Brailsford on that offensive line for Alabama. Another big piece back on that offensive line for the Tide. Of course, transferred in last year and was very good for them. Coming in number 43, I think one of the best running backs in the country, and he's going to have a tandem of Reuben Owens and Amari Daniels and others with him, and that's A&M running back Le'Veon Moss. Really good player. And again, I keep saying I think the Aggies are going to lead the country in rushing. So Le'Veon Moss coming in at number 43. And rounding out this group, and KJ Bolden, the Georgia DB, coming in at number 41. Big-time safety, playmaker, can move all over the field. KJ Bolden at number 41. As we dip into the top 40, checking in for some SEC guys. On the D-line for Alabama, LT Overton checks in at number 38. I had somebody, when we first got this list out, said maybe a little high for LT Overton, but expectations are high for, the defense in Alabama. They have to be better. It needs to be a strength for them. And, I think that LT Overton could be due for a big year on the D-line for Alabama. How about John Napier checking in number 37, the former Washington State quarterback, now at Oklahoma with his offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle. So John Napier, number 37 on this list. Again, full disclosure, we talked about the preseason all-SEC team. I had him as my number 3 quarterback on that list with Garrett Nussmeier, LaNorris Sellers. Arch Manning was the one who ended up making 3rd on this list. The SEC all preseason list, I had John Napier 3rd. I had talked to some other media members who had John Napier as well. Just think he's going to put up a lot of big numbers there at Oklahoma. Coming in number 35, Michael Taff, one of the big returners of that secondary for Texas. Going to be a senior, going to be a guy that is going to lead them, not just on the field, but off the field. One of their leaders, locker room leaders, Michael Taff for Texas. Big piece coming in at number 35. Coming in number 34 is a guy new to the SEC, coming over from Georgia Tech, Eric Singleton Jr., wide receiver at Auburn. And, of course, we know that dynamic freshman class they had last year, led by Cam Coleman. Now they had another big-time pass catcher for Jackson Arnold to throw the football to, and that is Eric Singleton, number 34 on our list. And 2 spots ahead of him, number 32, it is Cam Coleman, the dynamic freshman from Auburn, who was so good last year. And expectations raise even more for him heading into his true sophomore season. Coming number 31, and some people might think this is a little low, but our Locked On guys seem to think this was about the right spot for him. Arch Manning at number 31. Seemed to be obviously a lot of hype and excitement. Former 5-star with the Manning last name, but a lot of our Locked On guys saying, we're kind of in prove it mode. Like, it's your time to shine. Go prove it to us. And obviously, if he does that, he's going to vault very high, up on this list for a lot of people. Of course, could be a top 10 player in college football this year if he plays up to the hype. So Arch Manning coming in at number 31. We get into our top 30. And from the SEC on this list, it's a lot of guys from the Big Ten and ACC, but coming to number 26, Centurion Perkins, linebacker for Ole Miss. Again, another tackling machine, guy who can play, all over the field, up and down the field. So good spot there for him. Again, 26, there's some other guys behind him I maybe would have rated a little bit higher, but I'm not going to argue it. He's so good for Ole Miss and one of the returning leading pieces of that defense that lost a ton to the NFL draft. Coming number 24, DJ Lagway, the Florida quarterback. Again, this is kind of we saw him down the stretch of the season for Florida and was so good. Some people arguing, would you put Arch ahead of Lagway? Again, that's up to you and your interpretation, but Lagway and Arch, both very hyped quarterbacks that could certainly impress this year and have monster years. Now we get into our top 20, and coming in at number 19, it is Raylen Wilson of the Georgia Bulldogs. And our guy, Clint over there of Locked On Bulldogs, was talking about, CJ Allen's good, but Raylen Wilson he thinks is better, and that Raylen Wilson deserves a lot more attention and respect as a linebacker for the Georgia Bulldogs. So Raylen Wilson, keep an eye on him this year, set for a monster year. Coming to number 18, it's the offensive lineman from Alabama, Caden Proctor. Everybody expects to be a first-round pick next year, and obviously had the spring where he went over to Iowa and then came back over to Alabama and is locked in with the Crimson Tide. So number 18, or coming on number 18, is Caden Proctor. Jamal McCoy, again, another guy, one of the best cover corners in the SEC and the country. Jamal McCoy, defensive back at Tennessee, coming in number 15, and was battling injury in the spring, but seems to be back and ready to go. Coming number 13, LaNorris Sellers of South Carolina, the quarterback that a lot of people are very high on and expect to have a big year. The media at SEC Media Days voted him all SEC preseason. So let's see if Sellers can live up to the hype. And now we get into our top 10. And here we go. Keldrick Falk of Auburn coming in at number 10. We had him on the show just a couple weeks ago. Big time D lineman, maybe a little bit high for my liking, but it's fine. Keldrick Falk coming in at number 10. Colin Simmons at Texas coming in number 9. Big time playmaker for the Texas Longhorns last year as a true freshman, and impressed as the year went along, got better and better. Fun fact, he was a high school teammate of Caden Durham, the LSU running back, and they went separate ways. Caden Durham went to LSU, Colin Simmons went to Texas, and already became one of the best, edge or, sack artists in the SEC as a freshman. Colin Simmons at number 9. Coming in number 8, Garrett Nussmeier, the LSU quarterback. So he's the highest rated SEC quarterback on this list. Again, he's the only guy in college football coming back that threw for 4,000 yards last year. So the hype and expectations are there. Now he has to go live up to it. I think he has to lead LSU and Brian Kelly to a college football playoff appearance, if not a deep playoff run, and perhaps maybe even a national championship. The last two quarterbacks that were that highly touted and returned for their senior years at LSU, Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels. And now Garrett Nussmeier has a chance to follow in the footsteps of those two former Heisman winners. Let's see if he can do it. Coming in number 7, Anthony Hill, of course, the big-time linebacker at Texas, just is everywhere in the field. Sure tackler, recognizes the run, can come up and help stuff it. He's everywhere. It reminds me of when he was getting recruited. Texas A&M was in on him until the very last day. He went to Texas, and he is a Longhorn through and through, and he has been, making big tackles ever since he stepped foot on campus. So congrats to Anthony Hill. Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik comes in at number 6. How about Ryan Williams, coming off his outstanding freshman year last year at Alabama? Was incredible. I shudder to think what he's going to do as a sophomore. Uncoverable, can get open, catch radius is ridiculous. Ryan Williams, the now sophomore at Alabama, and yes, he did turn 18 years old, so he's no longer 17. Jeremiah Love, the Notre Dame running back, comes in at number 4. Dylan Stewart, the big-time South Carolina edge rusher, at number 3. We had him on the show this offseason. Excited to see what he can do without Kyle Kennard opposite him. They're going to have to find some other guys to step up, right? Because, he might be drawing a lot of double teams this year on that defensive line for South Carolina, but big-time player there at South Carolina. And then the last two players come in number 2 and number 1. Of course, number 2, Caleb Downs, safety at Ohio State, former Alabama safety. They come in at number 1, Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State, wide receiver. That, again, to me, with Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, they're 1A and 1B. You can't go wrong with either one. But Jeremiah Smith is going to be off to the NFL draft next year. Ryan Williams will still have to wait another year before he can go pro. So there you have it. That's our Locked On Top 100. What'd you think? Let us know in the comments on YouTube or wherever you watch our show. All right, when we return, our conversation with Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South. We talked with him on the 10 biggest storylines between me and him heading into the SEC season. We had a lot of fun with that, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Hey, if you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that is workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration is where it's at, and that is where our friends at Drip Drop come in. When you're top of your hydration, you're going to notice everything works better. Your energy, your mood, your focus, even your skin. But getting enough fluids every day isn't always easy, and that's why you are going to love using Drip Drop. Drip Drop is doctor developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium, electrolytes, and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. Again, don't get duped by buying any of those drinks that you think they're going to do the same thing at the store. Drip Drop, you can get the packets, have them at home, carry them in your pocket, bring them with you to the tailgate, whatever you're doing to stay hydrated. Right now, our friends at Drip Drop, they are offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege. That's dripdrop.com. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Go check them out today. You won't regret it. Run along here from SEC Media Days, and a pleasure to be joined by our buddy Connor O'Gara of Saturday Down South, our yearly visit with Connor. Sometimes we'll dabble mid-season and all that, but really we know every year at Media Days, we're going to sit down with Connor.
I love to be here. I love to know that I'm in the presence of the single greatest karaoke voice I have ever seen. Now, do the people know about this to the extent that they need to know about it? Not just like, oh, I do Shaggy in passing, but like really, I am Chris Gordy, and I am the best Shaggy impersonator, because that's basically what it is at this point, that exists in the world. If the people don't know about this, and this is some sort of Duke Silver situation with Ron Swanson, then I apologize, because the people need to know just how good you are at this.
Well, I've been doing it for 24 years now, so it's I think the secret's out there. If
that's longer than Shaggy's been doing it.
That is true. That is true. I saw somebody who saw Shaggy perform a couple months ago, and they were like, dude, you're better. So I was like, that's a good compliment. I want to do this with you. We're just going to go off the top of our heads. I want to compile this is like we're going to write a story. The 10 biggest storylines in the SEC this offseason.
You want me to come up with 10?
We're gonna put our brains together. We're gonna kind of compile this. But give me one, and then I'll come up with one.
Arch Manning. Arch Madness is finally here. We're going to have this confirmation bias one way or another, whether or not he's the real deal.
Okay, that's a good one. I will go, does Nussmeier take the Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow leap?
Brian Kelly called it astronomical, the year 2 step that Jaden Daniels took, and said that Garrett Nussmeier will do the same thing. So that means cash in the Heisman bets right now. That's money that you've already made if you've already put a Garrett Nussmeier future out there. Just start spending that money like you've had it. But I think that's good. I think it speaks to LSU as a whole.
But in 19, I had a buddy go, hey, dude, I might put a few bucks on Burrow to win the Heisman. I went, okay. And he did, and he won. So, you know.
I remember at SEC Media Days writing a story afterwards saying why I was okay with Joe Burrow earning 3rd team All-SEC honors in the preseason. And here we were a few months later being like, is he the best quarterback that we've ever seen at the college level?
Yeah.
Things can change from this point right now to SEC championship, national championship time. So I like that one. I think that's good. I think those are almost 2 separate things, though, even though they are very much related. About like LSU, Brian Kelly, year 4, the question about is he going to win a national championship at the end of year 4 like his 3 predecessors did at LSU. Like that in itself is its own thing, kind of separate from us. So I think we're at 3 right now.
Okay. Oh, okay. So you're putting that as a 3rd one.
Yeah.
So you did that as your 3rd, or is this number 3?
Sure.
So back to me. I will go. One, I think the Le'Veon Moss arrest is no big whoop. Reading the details of it, it's stupid, but I think he'll be fine. Can A&M lead the SEC in rushing? I think they will.
They had better because they return all of their offensive linemen. They have a rushing attack that is deep in year 2 of the Colin Klein offense, and that's the important thing. They have a quarterback right now in Marcel Reed that needs to improve the downfield passing. You don't question the rushing ability, the ability to keep plays alive, but even if the Le'Veon Moss thing lingers, and I'm not talking about the arrest, I'm actually talking about the knee coming off the torn ACL that he suffered in the South Carolina game. If that lingers at all, even though Mike Elko says that he's at full speed, and they're kind of easing him into it, Reuben Owens. That's the name.
Yes.
That's the name that outside of College Station, not enough people are talking about. But the former 5-star recruit who was able to surprisingly return late last season is the guy that everybody in College Station is going, this dude could be special. The combination of he and Amari Daniels, if that's what they need to get things to work early on, if Le'Veon Moss is still kind of easing his way back into things, again, that's not related to the arrest, then that's definitely something worth watching. I do think A&M should, in theory, have the number 1 rushing attack in the SEC.
Okay, that's 4. Give me 5.
Diego Pavia. Diego Pavia is wearing a tux. as we were recording this, and we're by the time people are listening to this, you'll have already known the full Diego Pavia experience. But Diego Pavia is wearing a tux at SEC Media Days, and I'm not sure if that's a Step Brothers reference. I'm going to assume it is. And you know what? Diego Pavia could have shown up here in his birthday suit, and I wouldn't have cared, because when you beat Alabama, when you're the quarterback at Vanderbilt, that changes everything about how we should talk about you. So Diego Pavia, what does it look like for an encore season? Can he beat Hugh Freeze, not for the third time, for the fourth time? That's what people forget. He already beat him 3 different times. Can he beat him a 4th time this year? That's what I'll be wondering about.
Number 6, I will go with Jackson Arnold is going to make Oklahoma fans say, what were we thinking in letting him go? He's got weapons around him. Cam Coleman, Barry Thompson, all these pieces that were all injured last year at Oklahoma. Yes. I think Auburn, we go, wow.
This should be the most talented group of receivers that Auburn has ever had, which is not saying much for a team that did not have a top 40 passing offense since 1997. They changed that last year. But I will say the Jackson Arnold experiment, I have a lot more skepticism going in than blind optimism. And I do think that Oklahoma, and maybe this feeds into our next one, the John Napier experience. What does it entail? I had his head coach at Washington State, Jake Dickert, on the podcast a few weeks ago. He said, I think he's the best player in college football. Best player in college football. And I have questions about what it's going to look like if he's with a defensive-minded head coach in Brent Venables who has a short leash once again. That is disastrous for the way that he likes to play the game.
Yeah.
Because he will take chances, he will put himself out there, and he's going to be one of those guys that likes to extend plays, attack downfield. And if it's not going well with that style for a 2-game stretch, a 3-game stretch, Brent Venables is going to be thinking about that $35 million buyout and the fact that he's going to have a new boss at some point in the school year. And you wonder if that's going to, if those things are going to be related. So I think that's kind of the big picture question about Oklahoma. That feeds into the next one, though. And I like that you went there with Jackson Arnold.
So you're pitting that as separate?
Yes, a separate one.
I will go into 8.
There's an obvious one you haven't hit on yet, and I'm surprised.
Well, I'm going to go Bama.
Yes, that's it.
And I was going to say Ryan Grubb almost saves Kalen DeBoer's job. This offense gets back on track, looks like it's supposed to. Ty Simpson is that, I don't know, call him game manager, whatever, but Ryan Williams and all his weapons, that Bama looks more like Bama this year.
I think Bama's a 10-2 team. I think Bama's a playoff team. Would I be saying these things if not for the reunion of one Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer? I don't think I would be. I think Ryan Grubb changes everything about the outlook of the Alabama offense. And if you don't believe that, watch what they did against such inferior competition last year. Ryan Grubb is the guy that's going to troubleshoot. He's the glue. He's the reason that Kalen DeBoer has been able to have the success that he's had. Now, Kalen DeBoer is a fantastic head coach. I mean, the guy's 6-1 against AP top 10 teams. He's 15-3 against the AP top 25. I mean, this is somebody that has done really, really well in a short amount of time at 3 different schools as an FBS head coach. I do think he's going to be able to figure out what needs this offense to go, and I think Ty Simpson ends up being the guy. So that was the obvious one. That was the one that was just sitting there. There's one other obvious one that we haven't talked about yet, and maybe it's kind of the waiting in the wings storyline of the week. Georgia.
Oh yeah. Oh, those guys.
Those guys. Remember them? Is Georgia back? Maybe that's the question that we should be asking, because Georgia, coming off of consecutive years missing the college football playoff semifinals, after starting the year #1 in the country, preseason #1, that's a stat that we need to talk about a little bit more. The preseason #1 team in the AP poll, 19 of the last 20 years, did not win a national championship. 2017 Alabama, the only team that was able to overcome the preseason #1 ranking. Georgia's not going to be preseason #1 this year. What are those conversations going to be? Are we going to hear about Gunnar Stockton and his F-150 that's got 300,000 miles on it and how gritty of a quarterback he is? Or when bullets start flying, is he going to be a guy that looks like he can't handle it? We don't know that based on the 6 quarters of meaningful football we saw him play last year.
Yeah.
Unique sample size, but Georgia, are they able to get back to that championship level? That's going to be an obvious storyline this year.
So 10, we got to vote on this, because I've got DJ Lagway and I've got LaNorris Sellers, but we can only pick one more. Which one are we taking? Lagway?
Lagway, and you know what? That's another obvious one. There are a lot of good obvious storylines. Florida's the ultimate agent of chaos in college football this year. There are so many results that can happen with their season where pick 7-5 path, pick 9-3 path, pick 4-8 DJ Lagway re-injures his shoulder path. All of these paths are chaos. They are ending in, oh my gosh, is Billy Napier about to get fired and the Florida job's about to open up, which would then create the DJ Lagway transfer portal, crazy, ridiculous number that's going to get thrown out there, that whole storyline. And if Florida's good, and if DJ Lagway looks the part, that in itself is chaotic because Lord knows that hasn't happened a whole lot in the post-Urban Meyer era. And that in itself would create a frenzy with one of the biggest and I'd say most passionate fan bases that we have in the SEC and all of college football. So I think that's an obvious one that was sitting there, and I probably should have gotten to it earlier.
So call your bosses at Saturday Down South. Let them know. 10 biggest storylines of the SEC. By Connor O'Gara, parentheses, and Chris Gordy, parentheses.
There we go. We'll collab on it, like an Instagram post. We will not be collabing on any Shaggy songs anytime soon. You've got that very much covered. But I will gladly collab on that. So we can just transcribe. We'll get ChatGPT to just transcribe all of that.
Oh, they can. The whole article could be up within seconds. Before we let you go, give me who's in Atlanta and who's in the playoff.
The team.
I'm not going to hold you to this.
I'm already on record with all this.
Right.
Hold me to it and make fun of me if and when I'm wrong. I think one Brian Kelly will be hoisting an SEC championship.
Wow.
After beating Georgia.
Wow.
Not only that, Brian Kelly is going to win a national title.
Wow.
For the very first time. They said Ryan Day couldn't do it. They said he couldn't win the big game. They said he couldn't beat Michigan. They were right about that. They will say Brian Kelly, dang, he actually can coach. He put a roster together that can compete for a national championship. He said in his main media area press conference today the word championship 12 times.
Wow.
Not an accident. I do think that sense of urgency is finally there. I think that the LSU is able to beat Georgia to win the SEC championship. I think LSU, Georgia, Texas, and Bama are your 4 SEC teams that make it to the college football playoff.
Okay.
I think that 10-2 Bama, 10-2 Texas are able to get in there, and it'll be like an 11-2 Georgia situation where one of their losses in the SEC championship, where in the previous iteration of college football would have been the worst possible loss for Georgia, a loss they're very familiar with. And in this iteration of college football, we'll still be asking, like, hey, can Georgia be what Ohio State was last year? And could they be the most talented team that just kind of figures it out at the right time? But I'm going with the Bayou Bengals.
Man, poor Sark. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. They're just going to keep hanging banners for semifinals, but not getting...
Look, I actually have Texas losing in the quarterfinal, but
Okay.
I think Texas should start off as the number 1 team in the country, which maybe that's controversial. I just think that defense
They lost a lot.
But defensively, they did not.
Yeah.
And defensively, what they return with an All-American at every single level, and we're going to hear from some of these guys this week. We're going to hear from Michael Taft. We're going to hear from Anthony Hill Jr. That defensive line with Trey Moore is so unbelievably good, and the moves that they make. Colin Simmons, what he did as a true freshman last year. Like, Texas at every level of that Pete Kwiatkowski defense is just stacked. And I think that people that are caught up in the Arch madness, which we just talked about it being one of the 10 biggest storylines, so I guess that we're part of the problem. But people that are so obsessed with that as the make or break for Texas are ignoring what they return defensively. And so I do think Texas will lose that opening game at Ohio State, and people will be like, see, Arch is overrated, this team isn't that good. And then Texas will find its way to a 10-2 regular season, have an unbelievable defense. They're going to win a lot of games still, like 17-14, 21-17. It'll be kind of ugly at times, but the good from Arch will be noteworthy, and we'll see that difference in what he can do to take the top off of defense, to use his legs to be able to extend drives. Like, Arch will be the real deal, even if Texas doesn't win a national championship.
Is he back in 26?
Yes, he's back. I hate the way too early mocks having him at number 1. I can't stand it. I'm like, what about the Manning family? And you know that the Manning family better than I ever have and ever will with all the Manning passing academies that you've attended over the years. What about this family
I can
tells
speak
you?
Cajun, that's why I got it.
That's exactly why. You can speak Shaggy, you can speak Cajun. What about the Manning family suggests that they would have Arch be a 1-year guy as a starter?
No.
I think he's back in 26, and I don't even, like, I think he could win the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
and he would be back in 26.
Because it's not about money. They can get whatever NIL deal they want. Like,
and it's not like, oh, I got to go to the Saints. Like, no, like he's going to want to go to the right. Maybe the Saints would actually be a reason to stay in school, if anything.
Yeah.
So I don't buy that whole conversation. I get very, very mad whenever I see some sort of way too early mock draft just pencil in Arch the number 1 pick.
well, and the Saints are rolling with Carolina great Spencer Rattler or Louisville great Tyler Shuck. So
I have not sold my Spencer Rattler can be a decent pro. I don't know that he's going to be a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
But I have not sold my stock entirely. And if Tyler Shuck is in one of these Hendon Hooker situations where he's like 29 years old and still kind of waiting for his opportunity, it won't surprise me because I do think there's more to like than not with Spencer Rattler. That take might come back to bite me.
He is Connor O'Gara. Hold him to that. Read his stuff, Saturday Down South, and, of course, the podcast, Saturday Down South. Connor, I will see you in 364 more days.
I'm going to see you at karaoke.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll do that. Then I'll see you back here next year.
All right. Sounds good, man.
All right. Thanks again to Connor O'Gara for joining us. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Hey, for your second listen, check out Brian Smith. He's got the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm Chris Gordy. It's been Locked On SEC. We will talk to you guys tomorrow.